Not a third time, I promise. Greetings and salutations, most beautiful of beings, and welcome to this very special live stream where I have double the amazing guests and double the amazing topics. We're doing everything twice today. It's not just the bois, it's everything, you see? Everything is intentional. Let me introduce my beautiful guests, because of course they are far too modest to introduce themselves. First up, we have Nina Croft, top right. Growing up in cold, wet north of England, Nina spent much of her time dreaming of far away, sunny places and ponies. When she discovered both and much more could be found between the covers of a book, her life changed forever. Later, she headed south and after much traveling, finally settled with her husband on an almond farm in the mountains of southern Spain. Guys, she's already living a fairy tale and she writes novels. This is just the best thing. Nina spends her days reading, writing romance and riding her horse under the blue Spanish skies, sunshine and ponies. Proof that dreams really can come true if you want them enough. Nina, it's such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. Is southern Spain...
Thank you for having me.
Is it the dream?
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. As long as you like sunshine and flies. Sunshine and flies. If you see me, that's why. But no, I love it here. Absolutely love it.
Fantastic. And thank you so much for joining us today. And of course, we have Tracy Wolff, the #1 New York Times, #1 international, and USA Today bestselling author of over 60 novels. Good Lord, you've been busy. That run the gamut from young adult action adventures to adult new romance, and from women's fiction to erotica. A long-time lover of vampires, dragons, and all things that go bump in the night. Tracy loves nothing more than combining her affection for paranormal creatures with her love of writing tortured heroes and kickback heroines. Tracy, thank you so much for joining us today from...
currently Massachusetts. I am in Western Massachusetts in this tiny little town. And gorgeous. It's beautiful here. We're in the Berkshires, so it's green and beautiful and usually sunny. It's been a little rainy, but usually sunny and tons of green. And it looks a little bit like the Shire, actually.
Amazing. Well, you can tell these guys live in beautiful places because they write about horrible places. Their book coming... I would like to say your book blurb starts with, "The sun is dying." Let me bring this up really quickly. So this is the book that these guys have worked on together, Starbringer. It's coming out soon, is that correct?
Yes, July 11th.
It's coming out.
July 11th, so exciting. We're going to be talking more about this later. We're going to be digging into, I promised you 2 topics, science fiction world building. Yes, of course. The sun is dying. We need to talk about sci-fi. We need to understand the spaces that we're creating. And we're going to be talking about co-authoring as well. So folks, get those questions ready for our incredibly wise and experienced guests. We're going to be getting into those at the end of the stream. But I think first off, it's important to talk world building. Of course it is. We're World Anvil. So I'm just going to jump straight on in because I have so many questions. How did you guys approach world building science fiction? So what was your process of deciding things like your technology, your politics, your culture for the setting? How did you make those choices?
You want to field that, Nina, or you want me to do it?
You start off, Tracy.
Okay. I will say when it comes to science fiction, Nina is more of this is my first foray into science fiction. Nina has written definitely more of it than I have. So she kind of definitely took the lead on the world building. And we tended to we're both very character driven writers in general. I love ensemble cast. I love characters. I like making things as difficult for my characters as it possibly can be in any given situation. For example, the sun is dying.
It's like a place to start if you want to torture your characters, right?
It's also dying really, really fast.
It is dying very, very quickly.
Not taking the normal millions of years that the sun takes to die. It's doing it in decades. just to
Wow.
speed things up a little.
Just to make things a little more terrible for everybody at any given moment. And but because we are such character driven writers, we both kind of started by brainstorming out the characters. You know, we've kind of our publisher has kind of built it as a Firefly meets the Breakfast Club, right? So we spent a lot of time kind of working up 7 very disparate misfit type characters, and once we had them, we worked from there on creating a world that would challenge these 7 people as much as we possibly could. What do you think about that, Nina? Oh my gosh, I just dropped my earring.
Oh no.
Yes, I think you're right. We basically needed something. We basically needed some reason that these people had to save the world. I mean, that is ultimately what we wanted to do. We wanted to save the world. And so, yeah, the sun is
galaxy,
dying.
right? We wanted to save the whole galaxy, actually.
Yes, we didn't just want to save.
We didn't just want to save the
people.
world. What's the fun in that? Anybody can do
Yes,
that.
a whole universe. So yeah, so we started with our 7 characters, and then we worked out the world from there. We worked out where these people could come from, how it would make, what different planets could make them very different people and bring them into conflict with each other. We brought in aliens because well, I'll leave the aliens a little, actually, because that's going to come in the next book. So we don't really want to say too much about the aliens, but there is an alien involvement. Basically, it was bringing in all the things that I like best about sci-fi. I was brought up on Star Wars and Dune and such like. So I'm into sort of the whole epic adventure sort of thing. So yeah, so we started with our characters, and then we worked out a world where they could have lots and lots of adventures.
Really cool. So very character-driven approach to world building. How did you make choices about things like the technology level and that kind of thing?
You want me? Well, basically, we wanted to keep it. I mean, I hesitate to say the term sci-fi light, but we wanted to keep it fun and funny, and really concentrate on, because it is also a romance, right? There are 2 romantic arcs in it as well. 2 different couples, a sapphic couple and a heterosexual couple. And we really wanted to give time to that development, and then the development of this ensemble cast. So we did spend a lot of time just really concentrating on what it was like to be in the spaceship. And absolutely, there are worlds and a political system in place. In fact, one of our characters is a princess, heir to the throne of the political system. And of course, one of our characters is a rebel, trying to overthrow the political system. And a couple others are people who've been victimized by the political system. And so it was definitely a raucous ride in the spaceship. But we kind of, well, Lena, why don't you talk a little bit more about the decisions of...
Yeah, I mean, I'd say there were definitely 2 levels of world building for me. And the main one was actually the spaceship. It was inside the spaceship, because a lot of the time is spent in there. And I love the spaceship. So I spent a lot of time. There's so many sites, on there, how to build a spaceship. It was unbelievable. So how to build your spaceship and what you needed in your spaceship and how to propel your spaceship. So I spent a lot of time doing research on that. So, for me, the main world in the book is inside that spaceship.
We do get to explore other planets, and we kind of just had fun kind of imagining what different planets would look like. We looked at like our own solar system, right? And distance from sun and all of the things, water and
gravity
and what different gravitational pulls do to people if they were on different, different planets. We looked at different atmospheres, different food sources, all of these things, and kind of imagined, what it would look like in a galaxy far, far away. And so we do come out, we do get to see several different planets, and we did have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, that was my second level. I was going to say there is 2 levels. There's the spaceship, and then there's a world. But just one comment on you mentioning technology in particular. We do have there's an organization that basically controls all the technology in the system, and most of the planets do not get access to that technology. So they're almost, a lot of them are very feudal. They're very feudal planets. They don't have access to spaceships. Only the ruling families and the corporation that runs the technology have legal access to spaceships. And then there's the outlaws, which we have a number of on our spaceship, which do actually manage to find ways to get them. So the technology is very limited within the system itself, except for this one organization, the corporation, who are doing all sorts of experiments, which again, we won't go into too much because that's coming up in the next books. So this first book was really, for me, this first book was really about finding out about the characters and setting the things in place that will lead us to all sorts of exciting things in the next 2 books. Would you agree, Tracy?
And the spaceship is, I agree with Nina. It's one of I think the most fun parts of the book. She does have a mind of her own, and it's rarely what the characters and/or the captain or pilot want her to do. So, the struggle there is real and fun, and we had a lot of fun, really, just kind of playing that up and using her as another character to a certain extent.
She will be a definite big character coming up.
Wonderful. Taking setting as character to a whole new level by literally giving them a personality. I love that. I think that's very, very nice. How did you handle things like FTL, faster than light travel? Is that something that you dug into the mechanics of much?
No, I didn't. I'm not sure whether Tracy did. I didn't. And in fact, when we were building the system, did a lot of research into basically how planets could move around their solar system so that they became aligned, and there weren't any really big distances to travel. This system is very small, and there is a reason for that. So we did not need faster than light travel, which I'm quite glad of, because it's been done so much, and deciding whether warp speed or black holes or wormhole travel or whatever. So no, we didn't need faster than light travel.
Yeah, we're not ruling that out, obviously, for the rest of the series, depending on where things are going.
I love wormholes.
But for this one, yeah, we definitely kept it. Within the system, and we'll leave it at that. We definitely kept it within
again
the
a bit. If you think about the world in Firefly, they were just moving between planets. It was never faster than, at least I don't think it was faster than light travel. It's a while since I watched it, but no, there was sort of like, it was like days, weeks. They were traveling between planets rather than really long distances.
Really interesting.
Same thing.
How did you handle? Oh, sorry. I actually should preface that question with another question. How far is the travel between places in your story? Is it days and weeks as well, or is it more speed, essentially?
I think the longest. What, Tracy? Go.
I think the longest is several weeks leading into month and a half, kind of a thing. So yeah, most of the travel is within very close distances. I mean, going very quickly, obviously, but yes, within close distances.
Amazing. Which brings me to the question I wanted to ask. How did you handle longer travel times from a narrative perspective? Because, of course, that's a time when you've got all of your characters stuck in a ship, but they're not going out and doing things. They're all trapped in a tin can, essentially. How did you make story with those spaces? How did you manage pacing with those kind of
Well, I think that actually is one of the most fun things about having 7 very misfit characters, right? Because when you're writing a story and you're looking at overarching conflict, but you're also looking at internal conflict, and all of these characters have internal conflict, like very strong internal conflicts, but they also have very strong external conflicts with each other from very, very different reasons. And so when they are on the ship for these periods of time, Nina and I did a couple of different things, right? One, we chose to use those times to advance the romances, but also to really advance relationships, both conflicting and non-conflicting, I guess,
Yeah.
relationships between characters. Also, we told the story, and let's let Nina talk about this a little bit, but we told the story from 4 different perspectives, which I think also really helped move things along, because everybody is experiencing this differently. And everybody on the ship, and this was the thing that we were really kind of dove into, and I think really helped make those periods of time actually not just go faster, but actually become some of the most interesting in the book. And that is the fact that everybody on the ship has a different agenda. Everybody is there. I mean, it looks like they all kind of end up there by accident at the very beginning, but the fact of the matter is all 7 of them have a very different agenda. And when you have 7 different agendas on one small spaceship, and also a struggle for control, that leads to a lot of conflict. And of course, conflict is what moves story forward and what is so interesting. But you want to talk about the different perspectives, Nina?
Yes. I mean, we knew from the start that this was definitely going to be an ensemble cast. It wasn't going to be a story driven by one person. It was going to be a number of people with almost equal stakes in the story. I mean, obviously, some of them came out with more page time than others. But yes, we had 4 POVs and 2 romances within those POVs. We had the princess, and we had the outlaw, who's also the captain of the ship, self-proclaimed.
Self-proclaimed being the key there.
Yeah, he's great. And we had the high priestess of the Sisterhood of the Light, which is the one religion in the system, and is basically all to do with they believe they're going to save the dying sun. They believe they're going to save the dying sun. And then we have the rebel, who's also the love interest with the high priestess. So we've got those 4 characters, two sets of relationships, and we've also got 3 other people that also play quite a big part in it as well. We just decided that was enough POVs. The others, at least 2 of the others, will probably have their POVs in the next book. So we'll get to see more of those. So it was great. As Tracy said, we saw things from different perspectives. You could see the same thing and somebody else would see it in totally different light. So it was really interesting from that point.
And I think the conflicts were so interesting because you have the princess and the outlaw. So you have major conflict there, but you also have huge conflict between the princess and the rebel, because the rebel has literally spent her whole life kind of born into the rebellion, actively working to overthrow the government that the princess has been a part of. And then you have the rebel and the high priestess, who has been cloistered her entire life. And this is pretty much her very first adventure anywhere, doing anything. And she really kind of is having fun, despite the fact that everything is going wrong and everything is kind of going to shit. She is having a blast because she's not locked up.
Yeah, she's living it.
On a planet that is very close to the dying sun and is suffering obviously a lot of ill effects because of that. And so you have like all this, like Rain is, having blast, and then one of the other 7 characters is her bodyguard, whose entire reason for being, it seems, through the book, is to get her back to the monastery, which puts him in direct conflict with her, obviously, but also with all of these other characters who are heading completely away from the dying sun and not toward it for various reasons.
One of the interesting things for me writing these characters is normally you try your best to steer clear of stereotypes. And in some ways, when we actually started at the beginning of the book, these characters all fitted into a particular stereotype, because we were trying to show, a la the Breakfast Club, that stereotypes don't need to define people. And what you look like on the outside isn't necessarily who you are on the inside, and you shouldn't be labelled by society. So it's basically people that looked like they were various stereotypes moving out of it and becoming what they really could be, which was a very interesting thing to do.
That's a gorgeous message. And it sounds like, with regard to longer travel times within a narrative, really that's part of the story. Is you managed to keep the interest
Getting
by
to know you time.
exactly. It was that interpersonal conflict which you managed to create by.
We also had lots of
this diverse
explosions as well. Don't think it was all
Yeah,
just
I mean,
getting to
lots of
know you. There was
explosions.
a
I
lot
mean,
of
the fact of the matter
explosions.
is, yeah, the entire galaxy is pretty much on their butts, so they're constantly having to figure out how to
The duck and
how to
dive and stay
try and
alive.
figure out. I mean, one of the big mysteries is, right, who exactly is trying to kill us? I mean, it looks like everybody is trying to kill us, but like, for what reason? Because again, you've got seven separate agendas, and with 7 separate agendas and 7 different people, you have very different different people who are upset at people for different reasons, right? And so they were in trouble a lot.
They were in trouble a lot. Sounds like a great premise.
They were in trouble a lot.
It was fun. It was fun to write. I hope it's as much fun to read, because it was a great fun to write.
It was great
Wonderful.
fun.
How can we
Now-
put these people in harm's way again?
Yeah.
Now, I know that a dying son was a really critical part of your story. It's kind of the inciting incident in many ways. How much research did you do into the actual science of dying star, or of other sci-fi and astrophysics elements? Like, how important was that for your process, and why?
I did a lot, honestly. I get sucked into research very easily. It's one of the reasons I used to write paranormal, because there isn't any real research to do. You can just make it all up. And I knew it's a time suck. I just get sucked into it, and I love it. So yeah, I did a lot of research, not only on how suns die, but also on how they're created, which is part of the process. It's all really, it's being born, going through life and dying like everything else. Having said that, the research is really just a starting point, because as I said, the sun is dying much, much faster than that ever happens in the world as we know it. I'm not saying ever happens, because we don't know what's going on out there, do we? I mean, that's a whole wonderful thing about space. We don't know what's happening. We can't say this never happens, or this is the way it always happens in space, because it's just so vast and we don't know. But anyway, it is just a starting point.
We have a definite reason, which again will reveal itself to readers as it reveals itself to our characters through the rest of the trilogy, as to why this is happening and how the sun is behaving in such an abnormal manner. But one of the really, I think one of the things with, again, even lighter sci-fi like what we wrote, one of the most challenging parts about it in the world building is taking what can be, not always, but what can be dry research of and the science behind things, and trying to incorporate it into a story in the most interesting manner.
Yeah,
But stars are fascinating things. I always wanted to go into space. It's sad, isn't it? I want to go into space. Take me up.
Now, one of the things we haven't spoken about yet is food. And I know that food and cooking at Starbringer, that was a really important focus for you guys, as far as the setting and the world building. Why did you choose to highlight that particular aspect of the world? And by the way, I will let you know, this is audience approved. Culinary punk is a thing in the World Amble community. So yeah, big on food here.
You want to take it in, or you want me to do it?
You do, Tracy. I think you're more a foodie than me.
Oh, I think, well, part of the way I think it's so exciting when you meld, I mean, any 7 people from different cultures, I think food is a universal, and I think it's super fun to do that, right? It's another layer of what can be conflict, but more importantly, can bring you together, right? So one of the things we needed to do, even at the very beginning, right, are how do you get these 7 people to even consider working together? And survival tends to be one of those things, and obviously food is one of those things that predicate survival, and so kind of starting to center it around that, and their moments of coming together around, the chores, and then just the idea of cooking, and the idea of hey, let's just take a break for a second and sit down and have a meal together. And sometimes they're very terrible meals. Sometimes they're not. But sometimes they're very terrible meals. But sitting down and that act, I guess in my house with my children, that is every, if they are home, we have dinner together. And that is where, goodness, some days it's really great and amazing and wonderful. And some days it's like, I have 3 boys and I'm like, can we please not get together at the dinner table, please, just this one time. So either way, it is a place to work out grievances. It is a place to also bond and to find out more and to have a conversation with each other. And also it's kind of fun when you get your characters a little tipsy and what happens, especially when they're all trapped on a spaceship together.
Yeah, I will say that as well. So the food element did also have a cultural effect because, like, they had no food on the ship at first, and the planet they landed on had a lot of water, so they were basically eating fish. The high priestess who came from the hot planet had never had fish because she'd never been anywhere near water. Other things about food. One of the characters, Beckett the rebel, has yellow eyes, and it's because she comes from a desert planet where they eat these cacti, and it builds up in their system, and they get yellow eyes. So as well as just the getting together, there was some cultural elements with the food, which showed the different planets and the different ways people were living on the planets.
And it is the great equalizer, isn't it? I mean, everybody needs food to survive.
Needs to eat.
And at the most, food and water, and at the most basic level, that I think gives you something in common, and it transcends barriers and allows you to build bridges.
I love that. So a little bit of world building, show and tell, a little bit of character dynamics, a little bit of we all gotta eat, right? I love that. Beautiful. So how did you keep your setting consistent? Obviously, you're going to all of these different planets. There's all of these different people coming in. There's so much going on. You've got story after story coming on as well. How do you keep things consistent? Do you use something like a meta document? Did you have something like a touchstone? Like, if we feel like this, we're going off course?
We're in the middle of building a Bible right now, right? I tend to build the Bible after the first book is written. Once you have kind of everything in place and everything is firm and we know where it is. And then we go on.
And I tend to be chaos incarnate as a writer, and just have to go back and look up in the previous book what happened. But I'm not going to do this because I'm working with Tracy this time, and therefore I'm going to be very, very organised. And I have a scribbly document, and I'm going to fill it in.
I think that's the problem, right? Nina and I both tend to be chaos incarnate. I just came off writing the 6-book Crave series, which is a vampire series. And there's a ton of world building in it. And it was, somewhere after the first book where we were like, okay, look.
I say every time I'm going to be better.
Like, we've got to have a Bible for this. And
we do. We're going to do it. That. Tomorrow.
Exactly. So
amazing. So what I'm hearing is, do as I say, not as I do. Make a well Bible.
Exactly. Always do what we say and not as we do. Yes. As for the touchstone, I think we all just kept coming back to what the conflict was. Was this scene, was this whatever, moving this conflict forward, and was it legitimate to these characters? Because again, being character-driven writers, so much of what we do is based on character, internal and external conflicts, right? And so we just continue to go back to those to keep us honest, I guess you would say.
Yeah, I mean, we have an overarching goal for the whole trilogy, which I don't think it's giving anything away to say is going to be saving the world. But we also had a goal for the first book, and so we just kept that in mind, as Tracy said. And is every scene we do taking us towards that particular goal? Cool. And that does keep you online.
So more of a story trajectory than a world trajectory, but kept you going in the right direction.
Yes. For the most
Amazing.
part. For the most part, with a few deviations, because sometimes deviations become the best part, right? You follow that rabbit hole down, like you get an idea and you follow it down, and then suddenly you're like, oh, this is so cool. So you got to leave room for that too, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So there are people listening now. There are people listening in the future. Hello from the future, podcast listeners. What advice would you give to our audience if they want to write sci-fi, but they're intimidated by the science and the technology side of it? Do you have any advice for something like that?
Well, you've written a lot more sci-fi than I have, Nina. So why don't you start?
Again, I'm not a hard sci-fi writer. I'm not a hard sci-fi reader either. But I'd say don't be intimidated by it, because, you look at things like Star Trek. There's no such thing as warp speed. You make it up and you make it believable. The whole art of writing is doing what you want, but making it believable. As I said with the Dying Sun, I researched it, but then I accelerated it like a million times. So you start off with the science, you find something that really interests you, something from the tech in the future, something that's happening now, cybernetics, immortality, something that really interests you. You research it, and then you just go off at a tangent and do what you like. I mean, we're writing fiction. We're not doing a science paper or a documentary. We're writing fiction. We're making stuff up and making it exciting, but basing it in some level of fact that just makes people be able to relate to it. That's my take.
Works for me.
Yeah, great advice. Thank you so much. So the next part of this interview, I really want to focus on the co-authoring element of this, because this is something that is, it's not unique. There are other people who co-author, but it is fascinating. And I think it's something that's going to be really interesting to explore. So you guys write individually. Is this your first co-authoring experience together?
This is our first one together, yes.
And it's my first one. Absolutely.
Ever.
Tracy's.
Okay, but Tracy, you've co-authored with other people.
Yeah, before. I've co-authored a series with a fantasy series. I've co-authored a YA novel, and I've also co-authored a couple of romance novels before this. So yeah, but this one was really fun, and the thing I think that is so important about co-authoring, I guess we can start here even before you ask me a question, is the understanding that every time you do it, it's going to be different, because you're dealing with different people and different personalities, right? So of the 4 different, I say one I did with 2 people, but of the 4 different co-authoring experiences I've had, every single one has been completely different. And I can't say that one is better than the other, because they're all just different. And actually, I'm proud of all the different books that came out of the different partnerships, the different collaborations. But again, they were very, very different. So I think you need to know, if you're interested in co-authoring, that there's no right or wrong way, I think, to do it. I think it's what works for the 2 or more of you, versus, oh, here is a checklist by an author or authors who have successfully co-authored a book, and I need to follow it. Because trying to do it's the same way, right? A writer's process is a writer's process, and we can love our process, we can hate our process. I tend to hate my process, but and you can try to change your process, but the fact of the matter is, I think our brains tend to work the way our brains tend to work, and I'm 71 books in now, I think, and I still write them pretty much. I think you take the first few books to figure out what your process is, but I'd say like the last 60 have all kind of been written, whether they're co-authored or otherwise, in pretty similar manners, because you are who you are, and as a writer, and I don't think that changes just because you work with somebody. What do you think, Nina?
To some extent, yes. I tend to change up the way I write things.
Do you?
I have a low boredom threshold. Not really changing up, but I'm a total plotter. I do plot beforehand, but the way I plot tends to change between books, because, as I say, I have a low boredom threshold and I have to try something different. otherwise. Maybe because I am a plotter, and I know a lot of pantsers say that if they plot, they get bored, and maybe that's my way of avoiding getting bored when I plot. I do it in different methods.
I think that's I actually think that's a really not to interrupt, but you said something I think is so interesting. I'm not a full out pantser. I used to think I was. I used to think, oh, it's the most like awesome thing ever. You just sit down and you just write and like, you know, no. I am definitely what do they call them? Plotsters, where it's like a mixture.
Oh, yeah. Planters. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm a total plotter. I write scene by scene. I like to really get to know my characters before I start writing, and I find that's the best way to do it. I have to wait until they start talking in my head, you know. So I have to dig and dig and dig. And at one point they'll start talking, chatting away at me, and then I can start writing.
And I was going to say what I think is so important about co-authoring is teaming up with somebody who has different talents than you, right? Nina is amazing at like plotting out a story. And I bumble around trying to find the story because I am so rooted in character. They usually come to me very, very quickly. And then I'm like, okay, I have this, you know, barrel of people. What do I need to do with them? And being able to work with Nina is so cool because Nina is like, this is what you need to do with them, obviously.
And working with Tracy is so cool because she just adds so much emotion to the characters. And my editor is always saying, you need more emotion. You need more emotion. Stop shooting
like
people and killing people and whatever. Give some emotion. So, having said that, an interesting thing is the way we wrote this one was I basically wrote the first draft and then Tracy added in loads of character stuff. But we're going to do it slightly different next time. So that will be interesting. We're gonna
I say you stay consistent to your process, but we are going to change this one up a little bit and see, you know, just, I don't know. We're going to change it up. We'll let you should have us back on maybe in a year and we'll talk about what we did, what we did differently.
if we're both still alive.
Not to invite myself or anything. I'm just saying like things we'll probably have a different answer in a year.
Amazing.
We are on different continents, so we can't really get into blows about it.
That's true. That is absolutely true.
Yeah, we were talking about doing different
wormholes, and now we know why.
We're talking about doing different POVs, so it might be a bit of a who gets who.
Right. That is true because we all have our favorites, right? And not all of our favorites are the same. And so I'm like, no, I really think, and Nina's like, no, we really should be highlighting her. And I'm like, but he's so interesting. And we'll see what happens. It's going to be fun.
Amazing. So walk me through the co-authoring process for this first book. You said Nina wrote the first draft. Nina, did you write the first draft without talking to Tracy first?
No.
Did you already have set up a bunch of conversations about what was going to happen and how it would work?
We had a number of Zoom meetings before we actually got to that point. We had a number of Zoom meetings, which also included our publisher as well. This book is for a new imprint that our publisher are producing. She has strong ideas about obviously what she wants. It's new adult fantasy. So we all had a lot of meetings. We came up with, I think Tracy came up with the idea of matching it with Breakfast Club. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Which I jumped and I loved that film. So we had a number of meetings. We worked out what we wanted which characters we wanted, the basic plot, what was going to happen, the goal, and so on. And then we just started digging in. And I seem to remember the first 50 pages went backwards and forwards about 6 times.
Oh, back and forth between. Because that's actually my process. My process is a terrible process. Like I said, I tend to spend as long on the first 50 pages as I spend on the whole rest of the book, because I just like go back and forth. That's how I learn them. That's how
exactly. And that's presumably what I'm doing with my plotting process. I'm like working that out in the plotting process.
Yeah.
So the first 50 pages went backwards and forwards numerous times until we were happy with them, until we were all happy, me, Tracy, and Liz, our publisher. And after that, then I got stuck in and just wrote the first draft. One of the reasons being that Tracy was very, very busy doing other stuff at the time. So it worked in with her schedule. but also, as I say, it was just a method we tried. I got the first draft. I did some world building edits once that first draft was done, and then it went on to Tracy, and she did some character.
I did a lot of
Addition.
character
Also
edits.
some little bits of plot changes.
Yeah, so some plot changes based on just different ways we were choosing to take the characters and the relationships, and kind of just fleshing everything out, you know. I think I added probably, well, we took away a bunch. I think I added about as much as Nina had written, right? Between the book, almost doubled in size. So we did a lot, but back and forth, and then and then now, well, yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. Yeah, and that's where we are.
So Nina wrote the first draft, and then there was a lot of back and forth, and then you added a bunch of character.
There was a lot of back and forth, and then she wrote the first draft, and then there was some more back and forth, and then I did the second draft, basically.
And then it went straight to the editor, or was there more work to be done after that?
I went straight to the editor, and there was a little bit of work that was done there, and then it went to print.
Amazing. So a lot of process, but not a lot of drafts. And really interesting. Some co-authors, they like to, check scene by scene. Some do more broad. Really love the way that you guys have sort of, used your strengths and weaknesses.
And I think that's the thing about co-authoring. I think that is the important thing. You have to recognize what you can bring to it.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about your strengths and weaknesses already, but do you feel like they complement each other? What would you say they are in terms of, these are my strengths and this is where I feel that the other picks up well?
Well, Nina is, I think, really great at world building in general, at not just coming up with ideas for the world, but coming up with reasons why for the world, which is one of the places I lack. We always laugh, my editor and I, who's the same editor who did Starbreaker, but my editor for the Crave series would laugh when she'd ask me how something happened. I'd be like, well, it was magic. And she's like, no, magic does not work. We need something besides magic. And so then, I would spend a really long time working out the world and that. And Nina, I think, is so instinctively good at it. It comes to her much more quickly than it comes to me. It's something I really, really have to work at to really get it down. I think that's one of her incredible strengths as a partner.
I do remember one of my professors at university saying his idea of hell was me sitting in front of him saying, why? I always want to know why for everything. Why does it happen? Why are they like this? Why has she got yellow eyes or wings?
And she's very good at coming up with imaginative reasons why Beckett has yellow eyes, or imaginative reasons as to why Rain has had to be cloistered her entire life.
And my editor, the same editor, we've had the same editor for years and years and years, which is what really brought us together. And my editor says I complicate things too much. So yeah, she's telling you don't complicate things
together.
I complicate things too much. Doesn't have to be that complicated. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Oh,
she does tell me the same thing.
Yeah,
easy is always better. Like not easy. Simple is always better. And I'm like, maybe.
She hasn't convinced me. But no, and Tracy, as I said, Tracy is just fabulous at character building and just getting so much emotion in there. Really digging deep into the people and their motivations, why they do things. And yeah, she just writes fabulous characters. So it's a good mix. It's a good mix.
Wonderful. How about disagreements? How do you resolve disagreements as a writing pair?
We don't have any, do we, Tracy? None. We never disagree. Apart from calling him Ian.
Apart from calling him Ian, yes. Oh my gosh. Our editor hated. We're not even going to tell you the name of our main character the first time around. And then he went through many iterations, one of our main characters, I should say. And our editor was like brutal about the names, like didn't like any of them. And we finally settled on Ian, which it turns out is not one of Nina's favorites.
It's nothing really about the my first job was in an office with a guy called Ian, and he was just horrible. And it's that sort of thing that puts you off as a writer. It is that sort of thing that puts
it is
you off.
absolutely the sort of thing. Yeah, like when you're
Yeah.
brainstorming names, like who have
There's
I?
this pimply little guy who used to smoke. Like, this is when you're still allowed
Which
to
is
smoke.
not our character at all, by the way. He's not a pimply
Not
little
at
guy.
all. Not at all. So that's I think that's the only thing we really disagreed on. I don't think there was anything else.
Yeah, no, I think we're really good at just like.
I think we talked so much at the beginning that we did have a really good idea of where we were going.
And even if we had an idea, like one of them didn't like, we're like, oh no, that's not right. I don't think that's right. And like, okay, well, let's keep going until we find something that's right for both of us. And so yeah, I mean, there is compromise and stuff, but I think that we both really respect each other, and I think that that's one of the most important products or things you need, ingredients you need in a successful
You got to realize you're stronger together than you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So if Nina tells me, no, I really don't think that's right, then I'm going to say, okay,
listen,
then
it's not a one-upmanship thing. It's not.
And let's figure it out again, because something's obviously not right. And I don't think either one of us have egos so strong that we're like, no, I have to be right on this. I'm like, really okay, awesome. If you think it's wrong, then something's wrong, and let's fix it.
How has that been in your other collaborations, Tracy? I'm not asking you to dish dirt or anything. I'm not asking you to name names. I'm just wondering if we can find some tools here for resolving disagreements in the writing team.
I actually think that in general, that I think, again, I think any relationship starts with respect, right? If you really respect the person that you're partnering with in any aspect of your life, it tends to make things so much easier, because you tend to believe them if they tell you something is wrong, and you tend to want to work with them as opposed to kind of retreat to your corner and just be pissed off or whatever else, right?
I mean, honestly, my agent approached me right at the beginning and just said, Entangled want to know if you want to write a book with Tracy Wolff based on Around Firefly. And I was like, hell yeah, I do, because I love her writing. I love the Crave series. It's really good. So,
and Nina,
I went into it knowing that
Nina's series that she's done before are, I think, so interesting and so fascinating and just fun, and that's what I like. I think, and that's why I think we tend to call this more sci-fi light. It is funny, it is humorous, and it's something that I think we both really appreciate in writing. I mean, really terrible things can happen, but I think this is how I feel about life in general. Really terrible things happen, and it's how you deal with them, how you get back up and how you move on. Do you let it drag you down? Do you let it just ruin everything, or do you say, okay, it sucks, let's put on, let's figure out how to fix this, and that's and keep a sense of humor. I think at all times is one of the best ways for getting through life intact, and so I try to do that with my writing, and I know that Nina does as well, and I think that works well for both of us. So I think it helps.
Quite a high level of snark, I think.
High level of snark, yeah.
So that's good.
I love that. Well, folks, we have some wonderful questions from our audience, so I'm going to switch to those now. First up, Emily Armstrong asks, Emily Armstrong has actually asked several questions, but the one that we definitely haven't answered so far is, how do you ensure that your individual voices still shine through in a co-authored work?
I don't know.
Or do you feel that they even do?
I think it comes down to respect again. As Tracy said, you've got to respect each other as writers. And I don't think, for me, some of the characters changed more than others, but on the whole, I think it stayed true to my vision of the story. So yes, I think they still managed to shine through because we didn't change things drastically. Would you say that, Tracy?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is, again, about respecting each other's strengths. Nina laid down an incredible world for me to play with my characters, with our characters, I should say. incredible world for us to play with. And because I loved the world so much, it was very easy to respect what she'd done and leave that and then do my part, which was really playing with these people that we had, you know, decided on at the beginning and that she had created in her first draft, and really left me free to let the thing that I'm good at and kind of really polish that up and shine there. While at the same time knowing that she'd already done all this world building work and had, like I said, given me this fabulous world to put these, you know, these people in and play with
Well,
them.
yes, I think it's recognizing each other's strengths and what you bring to it. That's the important thing there.
And compromise, saying, hey, look, and accepting when somebody tells you, again, something's not right. Okay, well, how can I fix it and still stay true to what my vision is? How can your vision and my vision meld together? And I think once we get that, I think the rest is easy. Well, as easy as writing a book is.
And I think some of that was worked out with those first 50 pages that went backwards and forwards a lot of times. So we worked out at that stage basically what voice would work for the two of us, really.
That actually brings me to, oh, I beg your pardon, that actually brings me to my next question from Danny Adventures, who asks, how long would you say your pre-work brainstorming mayhem took? Love that phrasing. Versus those first 50 pages, the first draft, and then powering it up before getting it turned in. So sort of what were the durations of each of those phases, if you can remember?
Pre-work brainstorming and first 50 pages were definitely the longest, I think.
Several months.
Yeah, several months. And it's the going backwards and forwards that does take the time. The first draft, I'm quite a fast writer, so that probably only took me a couple of months.
And then
it's a long book.
Yeah. And then I'm a really fast writer too, and mine. Also, we were kind of up against the deadline, so
yes, which always helps.
Which always helps. Actually, I like deadlines too. My part took 5 weeks.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
So yeah, the first half was like 6 months, and then once we got those first 50 pages and everything worked out, Nina did it in a couple months. I was on tour, and then she finished the first draft, and then our publishing house read it, kind of said, you know, areas that they wanted us to work on, kind of a thing, and then it came to me, and I went from there. And
fantastic.
Wrote the second draft, and then it went back to the editor and some more minor changes, and then on to publication.
Amazing. So one more audience question, and a very insightful one from Hugh Pierre. How compatible do you guys think are the high concept stories to a misfit archetype? Is there a trade-off, did you feel, on how deeply you could go into either?
Oh, I think they're really compatible. I just came off.
So do I.
Like I said, I just came off the Crave series, which is another kind of ensemble cast group of different characters that I think allowed me over the 6 books, really allowed me to delve into characters and give each of the main characters a really, I hope, satisfactory character arc. But also really do a ton of world building and have an overarching, pretty high concept, I think, conflict that ran from the beginning to the end.
Definitely.
So
Definitely.
no, I think they lend themselves.
I think very compatible.
Yeah, and I think Starbringer, you know, we'll see when we get to the end of book 3, right? You know, we're not there yet, but I think Starbringer totally lends itself to that. I think it actually helps. Like I said,
and they won't be misfits anymore anyway.
Interesting conflicts when you bring different people from different walks of life together. Also, really, really fascinating relationships.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, guys. Well, Starbringer is available on July the 11th, I believe you guys said.
So close. We're so excited.
So close. Let's have a little preview. Here we go. Wait, I can do this better. There we go. Firefly meets the Breakfast Club in this snarky new adult romance. The sun is dying, and it's happening way too damn fast. With the clock ticking, the 9 planets' only hope of survival rests on a fancy space station with an alien artifact it's carrying, which is why it really sucks when some jackass doesn't want the universe saved and blows the station up while you're still on it. Folks, This looks absolutely wonderful. Nina, why should we buy this book and fall in love with it?
Because it's a roller coaster ride that you're going to have so much fun on. We had fun writing it, and I think that readers will have a lot of fun reading it as well.
Wonderful.
It's a fun book.
Tracy,
That takes you into space.
Amazing. Tracy, why should we buy this book and fall in love with it?
Because I think it's hilarious, and I think it's super fun. And I think that if you're looking for a summer read to take to the beach, or a summer read to just enjoy by the pool, or just, kind of get your mind off, the heat and the, wildfires. I'm in the East Coast right now, and we're dealing with the wildfires and all that, and all of the other things going on, and whatever's going on in your life. I think this is the book to take your mind off it and just give you a rollicking good time.
Absolutely amazing. Well, this that I'm showing you right now is ninacroft.com. You can also go to tracywolffauthor.com to follow up on both of these wonderful ladies. Thank you both so very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us. We had a really good time.
Oh, it has been my absolute pleasure. Thank you. Folks in the chat, just a reminder, it is now 24 hours until summer camp. Yes, this is not a drill. You have 24 hours before we open summer camp live. There are prizes to be won. There is inspiration to be had. We are giving away cash prizes. We are giving away world building goodies, including some of the things behind me. And yeah, it's all kicking off tomorrow live on stream at 6 p.m. UK time and 1 p.m. Eastern time. Yes, I can convert time. I swear.
Better than me then.
It's always a little bit of live math. Super interesting times. So yeah, that will all be kicking off tomorrow right here on the live stream. Demetrius and I will be unveiling the props one by one, unveiling their sponsors. We'll be unpacking them live here as well, taking all your suggestions, sharing the inspiration, and generally getting ourselves ready for a whole month of world building goodness. Cannot wait to see you all there. A big old thank you to Secondhand Samurai, who's been supporting me in the moderation space. And yeah, guys, I mean, you know what I'm going to say now? It's what we always say. I want you to grab your hammer and go world build. See you soon, guys. Bye.